Hello everyone and welcome to this video. It's been quite a while. Today I'm going to talk about UFO Aftermath. Before I do that, however, I wanted to apologize for the suboptimal quality of the footage you're seeing here. This was all captured from some mixer streams that I did, and I was using lower than usual settings, resulting in poor resolution and bitrate. But let's get started. This game was released back in 2003 for Windows XP, and although the name might imply otherwise, it is not related to the original UFO series and was not created by the same developers, being instead a product of Altar Games, a division of Bohemia Interactive. It is more of an homage with several changes to the formula that made the precursor so popular. Some of these changes present interesting mechanics for old schoolers and new players alike, others are just frustrating or do nothing to improve upon the original. I will of course discuss these in a moment. The plot is quite simple. In 2004, an alien spacecraft launches mysterious spores on the planet, wiping out most of Earth's population. You control a group of American survivors with the goal of finding out more on what happened and joining forces against the invaders. Apart from the opening cutscene, everything is told in the game through these text boxes that you see here or after completing vital scientific research. While this can be seen as a consequence of the low budget of the game, discovering more of the story through research actually helps the immersion of the player in a way. Still, some videos would have been nice. After the tutorial mission, which doesn't really teach you too much about the controls or other tactical elements, you're thrown to the strategic section of the game. If you've played other XCOM titles, this will look extremely familiar. You can check the status of your bases, intercept alien crafts, and deploy soldiers for your missions from here. However, compared to the other games, most elements have been extremely simplified. For instance, there is no base building component whatsoever. The only thing you can do is change the base type to military, scientific, or engineering. That's it. You cannot hire scientists, engineers, or soldiers, although you randomly get more soldiers throughout the game. You cannot even choose when or where to expand. You will see some expansion missions instead that will automatically create new bases after you win them. One element that did make it through the game mostly intact from all XCOM games, however, is the soldier management screen. There is a lot of variety in terms of firearms, armor, and other accessories that you can equip, and most of them are based on real-life weapons. This also indirectly adds an additional strategic element, as different weapons have their own stats and the various aliens may have distinct vulnerabilities that you might want to exploit. Expanding upon the XCOM games, soldiers have attributes and skills that will improve after participating in missions, depending on their performance. If they qualify for certain specializations, you can send a unit to training camp and choose their field. This will render the unit unavailable for a certain time, but they will get improvements in certain areas. While this is a welcome feature, as it might give you some variety when selecting a team for a mission, in reality, because there are no special skills like you might see in modern renditions of the series, specializations do not really make much of a difference. Sure, you might equip soldiers differently depending on whether they might be better at using pistols than sniper rifles, for instance, but in gameplay terms, the units will essentially act in the same way. Jumping to the tactical element of the game, you will immediately notice a difference compared to other similar titles. UFO Aftermath uses a hybrid real-time strategy system in which a player queues orders to the units using waypoints, but they can do that even while the game is paused, something that is possible at any time. I feel a bit conflicted about this system. On one hand, it gives you the chance to carefully think about any dangerous situation with less pressure, while on the other, it makes the controls more complicated than they should. This is because every order is assigned in a queue, as I just mentioned, and every time you want to override a directive, something that you will do very often by the way, you first need to press C and then assign the new order. This might not seem like a big deal, but when you must do this constantly during the course of a mission, it becomes annoying. Also, contrary to a standard RTS, the AI of your units is, simply put, non-existent, because they will only perform the actions that they are told by you. This means, for instance, that they will never attack an enemy or move into cover on their own. And the micromanagement experience of the game is not fluid at all. you can definitely tell that the tactical game mechanics have not aged so well. The in-game tutorial is so bare bones that does not cover the majority of the actions available. As an example, there is a mission that requires you to grab an injured alien from the ground and transport him to the evac zone. It took me an unnecessarily long amount of time to understand how to pick him up, because it just wasn't described anywhere in the game. You have to move your unit in the exact pixel that the game wants. You can only do this on certain size of aliens, which the game does not tell you by the way. Then go to the inventory, free up the space for your unit's hands, and only then you will be able to drag the icon that you need. And if you're thinking, but Ristic, if you played the old XCOMs, you should have known how to do this already. Believe me when I say that it was the first thing I tried, but in the game from 1993, it is actually much simpler and intuitive than this. Moving on from this, I do like the fact that the maps are procedurally generated, except for the story missions. However, there is not much variety in terms of objectives, and generally speaking, most of them feel quite easy. Combined with the fact that the medkit is overpowered, and that you have a maximum of 7 soldiers for most of the missions, the game never puts you into the kind of pressure that you feel when playing the XCOM remakes. A quick word on dogfights before switching to technical aspects. Actually, there isn't much to say, as there isn't much to do. You can only skip or order your crafts to retreat, while the same FMVs that you will see repeatedly show you the status of the engagement. You can upgrade your fighters through research, but in my experience, winning one is just very hard, no matter what point of the game you're in. While the graphics may not be technically exciting today, the art style is still pleasant and fits well not only with the game's themes, but also with the intentional nostalgia effect of the inspirational XCOM series. The UI sounds are effective, but I'm not a fan of the weapon sounds. They sound repetitive, in some cases thin and uninspiring. But the worst aspect of sound is the voiceover. Just watch this and you'll see what I mean.
I'm waiting for the
orders.
Yes, sir.
All done, sir.
I did it. Awaiting further orders.
Plan completed.
I'm waiting for the orders.
I'm ready for further orders.
I'm
ready
for
further orders.
Fortunately, the music is fantastic. It certainly feels heavily inspired by the old XCOMs, and there are only a handful of tracks, but they all convey the right mood. Without a doubt, this is one of the best parts of the game. In conclusion, if you love the XCOM series and feel tired of playing the new titles all the time, you might want to consider giving UFO Aftermath a try to keep things fresh. For everyone else, well, there are better options out there in the same genre. That's not to say that this game is bad, but it mostly plays to people's nostalgia, and I don't believe it's worth the frustrations for someone who had little interest in XCOM. And while it is true that today this genre of games has declined to the point of almost being considered a niche, most of what you find here has simply been done in superior ways elsewhere. It is worth noting that the game had 2 sequels, and that some of the concerns that I mention here have been partly addressed by Aftershock and Afterlight. However, both of them are as buggy and unstable as the first one, and even today running this on modern hardware is not so simple, even with GOG copies. But that's all from me today. Thank you for watching, and as always, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you next time.